Yeah, thank you very much, Niki. And yeah, you've been saying exactly that we've been working on this for quite a while now. My name is Dietmar Dahmen, and together with Niki, we are working on the World Operation Institute. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to give you a very basic introduction about our thinking. And I created a keynote, as you can see from the slides, where I have a full day condensed into 1 hour. So it's going to be 300 slides. But it's going to be a very interesting content. It's about why you should think in operating system and not just in input and outputs, what this means for you as a person, as a company, or as a political entity. And so let's jump into it. If we look at our world today, in my point of view and in Niki's point of view, we think that the world is in a relatively bad shape. And sometimes we feel as if we are in some kind of extremely weird, always changing, crazy Mad Max movie. There's so much stuff happening all the time. Data, robots, energy, culture, health, the planet. It's horrible. And it often seems to us that the world is in a new disorder and not in a new order. And this observation obviously is not very new. There's been disorders before. Nietzsche, in 1874, when the Industrial Revolution happened and everybody started to work with machines, said that the world has never been so worldly, never poorer in love and in goodness. Great observation. That was over 150 years ago. And just a couple of weeks ago, the Amnesty International annual report from 2026 observed that we are living in a world without a moral compass, in a predatory world order, and in a collapsing system. So the thing is that the world is in disorder, and the world operating system is asking itself, why is that? How come that we are in such a disarray? And very easy, the answer is clear. It's because the output is bad. What we produce is relatively bad. But why is the output bad? And we often think that's because the input is bad, but that is not true. It's not because the input is bad. In our point of view, it all depends on the operating system. On the operating system, it all depends on the engines that you use between input and output. If we look at the engine of a car and we have a certain input, and then we have the operating system, and then we have a certain output. If the engine of a car's input is gas, and the operating system is a gas engine, the output obviously is power. If you put the exact same gas, however, in a diesel engine, the output is a breakdown. So it doesn't depend on the input, it depends on which engine are you putting your stuff in. The operating system defines the result, not necessarily the input of your work and what you put in. And when the world is broken, we need to change the operating system. We need a new operating system where we have new economic theories that create a better output, a new operating system where we have new political theories that create a better output, and a new operating system that creates better personal theories for personal joy, personal well-being, and happiness, that this creates a better output. So we need a new operating system with people, politics, economics, and in Niki's and my point of view, also non-humans. And what we strive to do is a very long way, creating this operating system. But we're taking the first steps where we put our operating system thinking smack in the middle of people, politics, non-humans, and economics. What we are trying to do is to embark on a journey, and at the end of the journey there will be a new operating system that is more reliable, that is more predictable, that runs at a speed that is right for humans, right for us, and that creates benefits for everyone. You might say, that's too much. Why don't we just, let's just fix what we have? You know, why don't we just fix what we have? But fixing what we have won't work. Because if we fix the system from the inside, it will still be the same system. The output is still the same. The output is nearly the same if we, for instance, make one thing bigger and one thing smaller in the system. More this, less that. It's still the same system, right? There's no big change. If we add certain parts to the system and we just give another form of energy or create another something rather, it is still the same system. It's just with one more part. So it doesn't change the system. The output is still the same because the operating system is still the same. Moving the things around doesn't really change that much. It's always the same. The problem is that it's always the same system. The only thing you can do, the only way to come out of this Mad Max world is to change the entire system and create a completely new place. If you create an entire new system with a fundamental change, we will live in a world that is not a Mad Max world, but in our point of view, a more human world, better for us, better for the planet, better for everything. And also Nietzsche addressed that, where he said, we shouldn't just be cogs in a worldly machine. We should strive to be extraordinary individuals who give life back to a dying culture. That is what we are where we are today. I think we have a dying culture and we need to inject life with it with a new operating system. So how can we do that? That's our main change, main thinking. And in our point of view, we need a fundamental change. A fundamental change that works with operating systems in the center of everything. If we look at operating systems that you are familiar with, that already worked, our first idea was to think about Maslow. The Maslow is the hierarchy of needs, is a very great operating system that is familiar to probably most of you. The Maslow hierarchy of needs are 5 levels that define your needs. The problem with the Maslow need in our point of view is that it's the operating system of the individual. It's your needs. So we need to move that from the individual inside view to the outside view. So we need the operating system where we have the world hierarchy of needs and not the individual hierarchy of needs. I hope that is clear. So if we look at the first level, at Maslow, we will see that the first level of Maslow is physiological needs. It's what do I need? What do you need? And you need things like clothing, shirts, food, a house, shoes, things like that. But the emphasis on Maslow obviously is individual. So the emphasis is on I. We need to change that. And we need to move from the individual to the outside view, to the entire view. So we need to move from what do I need to what can I offer? What can I give to others? And giving stuff to others is extremely, extremely important because giving stuff to others moves the entire system forward. If you look at sports, let's say American football, you receive a ball, which is input. You run with this ball, but then you pass it on to others. And that's where you score. That's how you win. Passing stuff on to others is fantastic. And that's what we've been doing as humans all the time. That's our game right from the start. We get information, and that information is our senses, what we hear, what we see, what we taste, what we feel. That's what we receive, that's what we get. What do I need? I need information. But then we offer it to others. We share it with others, and sharing gives us the power. Our power is communication, because our power is that we share information. We collect information and then we pass it on and share it with others. And the individuals that can share information best are the ones that wins. That's why humans are so successful. The trick of humans is not just listening very smartly, but sharing it with others, learning, offering information to others. Passing it on is our trick. And at first it was obviously verbal. We passed on information verbally. And then at one point there was a big jump, and that was when Johannes Gutenberg printed 180 Bibles in the city of Mainz. And all of a sudden you moved from verbal information to mass-produced information that you could share with everybody. So he printed those things in Mainz, And then he was thinking, I need to share this information. What do I do? And his answer was, I go to the book fair in Frankfurt and I sell my books there. But if you look at Frankfurt, it's landlocked. There's not that many people around it, and there's not that much to share. So obviously the monks bought it, a couple of people bought it, the 180 Bibles were sold, but that's it. And Gutenberg died relatively poor. Compare him to his student, Nicholas Jensen. Nicholas Jensen studied with Gutenberg, but he thought, you know what, it's all about distribution. And I need to go to a place where distribution works much better. And he went to Venice, because Venice was the best place to share and exchange goods and ideas. So he said, where can I pass my information on much better? He went to Venice because Venice has a network. Then he actually printed a book. He could put it on a ship and sell that book everywhere, not just in Frankfurt vicinity. So that was good. He created a market, books that were not just for monks, but for everybody. He not just printed the Bibles, but all kinds of books. And he made it very accessible by not over-designing it. Nicholas Jensen is actually the person who invented the Roman font, which is way easier to read than all of the books that Gutenberg printed. So accessibility, the market, and the network made him incredibly wealthy. He died incredibly wealthy. And that's a couple of hundred years ago, and that's happening again a couple of decades ago, right? If you look at Steve Jobs, the iPod was invented before the iPod came. MP3 players were invented before the invention of the iPod. But he made it more accessible, he had a better network, it looked very good, and the market was there. So Steve Jobs got extremely wealthy. Same is true, obviously, with Bezos and Kindle. E-books existed before Kindle, but he made it way more accessible. And it doesn't stop there. It goes on and on and on and on. Because in today's world, we can share information with a lot of other things, and not just humans. In Shenzhen, we have now humanoid robots, a production line. So that's getting very, very market-oriented. We can talk to elephants extremely well. AI helps us understand elephants. AI also helps us understand whales. We can connect with non-human entities.
Over and just disappeared down into the depths. See each other in Caribbean. They make a in a very distinct pattern.
Ooh.
Tick, tick, tick. Like Morse code.
I have to stop this. So what do we learn when we talk to elephants, when we talk to robots, when we talk to whales? What do we teach them? What do we offer them? The problem is that now we have to share our information and we have to learn from other entities. We have AI parenting. How do we train the AI? We have robots potentially parenting our children. The learning is that having the ball is great, but passing it on to others is much, much better. And we have to ask ourselves, what do we pass on? What do we pass on? What can we offer to others, and what can you offer to others? To humans, to non-humans, to politicians, to companies. Very, very important. So the inside view, what do I need, becomes what can I offer? Second level is safety. Safety needs is the second level in the Maslow pyramid, and safety needs more or less means that you need to secure what you have. You lock what you have away. You have a house, you have a shoe, you have food, you lock it away. In our point of view, locking it away keeps it to you. We need to open it up and unlock what you have. Unlocking new potential is the most important thing. Safety has to liberate you and not keep you locked away. You have to dare new things thanks to the safety that you have. There's a very famous book by John Bowley that says, to dare exploration from a secure place is very, very important. If you have a secure place, dare to go somewhere else. In our world, in the business world, it would mean that now that you have something, you can finally do something new. Now that I have apps, for instance, I can finally individualize. That's what Spotify says. In China, there's a very easy example from Luckin Coffee. Luckin Coffee, as you might know, is now bigger than Starbucks coffee. Starbucks was the number one, and then Luckin Coffee decided to go full stack algorithmic, which means you can only order Luckin Coffee from your app. You cannot go to a store and say, I would like to have Luckin Coffee. You have to, even if you're in the store, you have to order it on the app. Full stack algorithmic approach. With that information, they were able to beat Starbucks because it was a completely new thing. They can have absolutely amazing predictive personalization because they know when you normally buy coffee, what kind of coffee you normally buy, where you buy it, what you do, and they know where you are, your GPS. They know the weather currently, they know if you're close to a Luckin store or not, and they can send you absolutely individualized coupons, maybe 50% off. If you get your Luckin Coffee now, you're just 200 meters away from a Luckin Coffee. Unbelievable. So they know what you buy. They also know what you do not buy, where you just stop and look and find it interesting. And maybe you find a new taste interesting. Maybe it just keeps your thumb hovering for a second and they know, wow, that's an interesting thing. And this information helps them to come up with over 100 new tastes a year. It's unbelievable because they do the market research in the real market on your phone. Are people interested? Do they stop? Yes or no? And if they have a product that is promising, they can roll out within 48 hours because they have inventory intelligence, which means that the owner doesn't order or have to order the new taste actively. You just send it to them automatically. So Luckin Coffee thought, now that I have full stack algorithms, I don't lock it away, I unlock new things. Now that I have full stack algorithm, I can finally individualize, predict, test, scale, and roll out way faster than anybody else. So what we need to do is we have to come up with a new thinking that unlocks your thinking. Maslow locks you in, and we have to lock you out. A wider you that unlocks new potential. And that new potential is also with non-human entities. So if you look at non-human entities like AIs or robots, you have to ask yourself, now that I am in a new relationship with a non-human entity, what does this unlock for me and for my business? What does this unlock? Now that I have maybe a new shared consciousness with non-human entities, like animals, maybe the planet, maybe a forest, what does that unlock? What new things should I do now? The learning is simple. Having something is great, but using it to unlock something new is way, way better. So don't lock it away, unlock new potential. What can you unlock today? What did you unlock recently? Very important question. The third level in the Maslow pyramid, as you might remember, is loving and belonging. And loving and belonging is great because we all want to be loved. We want to be loved. But in the world operating system point of view, we have to change from we want to be loved to we want to build love. We want to build love. We want to make things that people love. We want great resonance coming from our actions. We want a wider perspective that creates echoes that the world appreciates. So the wider perception of loving and belonging is building love and creating love echoes. I give you an example that you are hopefully aware of, especially if you're not from England, but that is 5 o'clock tea. You might have heard about 5 o'clock tea. How come? 5 o'clock tea is not an institution. 5 o'clock tea was obviously created by somebody. It was created by somebody, and that somebody was Anna Maria Russell. And that somebody created it in 1840. At one point in 1840, Anna Maria Russell noticed that she's simply hungry at 5. Dinner was at 8. Breakfast was already over, and at 5 in the afternoon she was hungry. So what she did was very simple. She said, you know what, I'm going to invite my friends to have an afternoon tea with some biscuits and some sandwiches, and we can eat and drink and have a conversation. And that idea was fantastic, and people said, what a good idea. I'm definitely going to come. I find it amazing. And then they found it so good that they said, I'm going to do it myself. I'm going to invite people to my 5 o'clock tea. And then it grew and grew and grew and grew. So the learning here is that everything you do creates an echo. And what you have to make sure is that the world sees it as a good idea echo and not as a bad idea. People will talk about it, people will notice it, and people will replicate it. And hopefully they replicate something that's good. So you need to make sure that you build love echoes. My personal point of view, a fantastic example of love echoes is definitely Patagonia. When they started to have the better than new recrafted wear, where they sold used Patagonia clothing in their store, and people loved it. Worn Wear was launched in 2012 and transformed second-hand shopping from a niche thrifting activity where you just save money into a mainstream high-status choice for the conscientious consumer. People decided it and said, I would like to have used clothing, I want to save the planet. 62% of Gen Z now checks for an item second-hand before even considering to buy it new, all kicked off by them. And the resale of used clothing is now 10% of all global clothing. 10% fewer materials, less energy, less water, unbelievable. A great, great thing. Second-hand global market is 289 billion in this year, US. So that's a fantastic echo that Patagonia created. And it is an echo that lasts. You have to ask yourself, do I create a good echo and will it last? And this brings us to the next 2 top levels and the final top levels of the Maslow pyramid and of this short talk today. The first 3 levels were, what does the world give me? They give me food, that's level number 1. They give me doors, that's level number 2. I can lock the food away. And they give me friends who love me. That's loving and belonging. So the world gives stuff to you. But the next 2 top levels are different because it's what do I give to myself? It is what do I give to myself? I get a watch, I buy a car, I want nice stuff. That's self-esteem. What shows value to me? And you say, my value is, for instance, a great library of music or of books or something like that. The problem with that is that our demands are endless. We want everything, everywhere, all at once, and that's a big problem. We want endless music. We're not happy with just a bunch of albums that we can listen to. We want all the music in the world, and we want endless newspapers. We want endless information, stuff that we can scroll endlessly. It used to be that you read a newspaper, maybe 2, maybe 3, maybe 4, but when they're done, and you were finished. That is not happening anymore. You can scroll forever. It's unbelievable. People today scroll 375 meters on their phone every single day. That's why they have really thick thumbs. Because we want endless information. Our demands are endless. But the problem is, if we keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, the demands are endless, but the world is not endless. And at one point it needs to stop. At one point it needs to stop. We don't have endless resources. We don't have an endless planet. We need to stop and scale sustainably. A very easy example from unsustainable scaling and just the thinking of endless resourcing comes from Kodak. Kodak in the 70s and 60s of the last century was the biggest producer of films and of printed photos. They printed photos all the time, prints to be proud of. Their motto was actually that we print memories on paper. We print memories on paper. And that was good if everybody took like one photo or two or three. But today we are not talking about 1, 2, 3 photos. We have 2 trillion photos a year. 2 trillion photos, that's unbelievable. If we were to print them, we would have an alpine photo apocalypse, because we have 2 trillion photos and we have 4 billion trees, and each tree can generate 10,000 sheets of paper you can print the photos on. So that means that within 9 years, all the trees in the Alps would be gone. We would have no trees. It's unbelievable. So the question is, how do you scale without killing the planet? How can you avoid a total apocalypse of resources? How do you scale sustainably? And in our point of view, you have to change your thinking. The World Operating System has to help you change your thinking. And that change is that you separate body and soul. Going back to the Kodak example, memories is the soul. That's what you want to keep. But the answer of Kodak, how do you keep those memories, was printing on paper, and that's the body. And we have to look for a new way, a new solution in between, which in our world obviously is digital, where we have digital memories. So we keep the soul of our memories, but we get rid of the body. The same is true obviously for mobility, right? Mobility is great, that's what we need. Car is a body, and we need to get rid of potentially of car ownership. We need to come up with new solutions. So how can we move from creating bodies and objects to creating services and soul? How can we do that? And in my point of view, one very easy way is to think that you have to move from a noun to a verb. Okay, let's do a little experiment. I hope you can do it in your head. The experiment is relatively easy. I want you to design a chair in your head. So in your mind, please design a chair. You will come up with many solutions, and then they will all be great. That's how chairs, my chair is more like this or red or whatever. Now we change the setup, and first, please, think about what a chair does, not what it is. And what a chair does is relatively simple. That's the verb, right? We sit on a chair. That's what it does. So now I ask you to design something that you can sit on. And if you design something that you can sit on, your solutions will be completely different from the stuff that you had before. So the learning here is that the soul is always bigger than the body, which means you have way more options. A chair is limited. Things you can sit on is way, way more. So it's bigger. The soul also lasts longer than the body, because you might move through various solutions to keep the soul still alive. If you look at keeping food fresh, for instance, we used to have cans, and then we used to have, and cans are not that big anymore, then maybe refrigerators, now we have vacuum packs, all kinds of things. The soul stays the same. The body might change. So if we use this kind of thinking in the World Operating System for your business, you have to say that you have to move away from goods. Self-esteem is about goods, to services. And you have to move away from stuff that harms the environment, where if you print all the papers at one point you will have no more trees left, stuff that depletes the resources, to stuff that helps the environment, where you actually restore resources. In our point of view, the ideal level, the best fourth level in the World Operating System would be where you think about a product where the more often you use it, the better it is for the environment. And the better it is for the planet, for the user, for everybody. A very easy example is concrete, for instance, that captures CO2. There is a clean concrete thing where they now captured 750,000 tons of CO2 just by using the concrete. So instead of polluting the planet when you build a house with concrete, you're actually saving the planet. That's a fantastic thing. So try to do that. Last level is self-actualization. And self-actualization is, how do I see myself? And obviously this is an inside view. How do I see myself? And we have to change that to, how do you see me? How do you see me, and not just today, but in the long run? And that is legacy. Legacy is our top level in the world operating system. And the legacy is your signature on the lives of others. Legacy is your echo over time, not just today, not just 10 years, but over a long, long time. And some things change dramatically quickly in a short amount of time. If you look at OpenAI, for instance, and ChatGPT, in 2022, when they did it, it was fantastic. Everybody says, wow, greatest company ever. And now you have a user drop, the market share is dropping, Sora is discontinued, the Disney deal is gone. It's going down, 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 down by 300%, going down, 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 whereas others like Claude, obviously, is absolutely rising. So the question is, how come? And the answer is relatively simple, because there was stress. There was stress, and the stress with OpenAI was that they started to talk to the American military and politics and stuff like that, and people didn't like it. So there was stress, and there's all kinds of stresses. There's the stress of scale. Remember Kodak. So you have to ask yourself, my legacy, will it survive the stress of scale? And this is what is happening with AI right now, because there's so much energy. AI is using energy like crazy, and there will be some disruption, because otherwise they could not scale sustainably. We will come up probably with new models that are not large language models, but maybe smarter models that are smaller, small language models, small smart models. There will be change, and then the old kings will be not ruling anymore. So stress of scale is important. Stress of time is important, because stuff changes over time. We all know, especially if you live in cities, that sometimes it used to be that city says, oh my God, there's so much traffic in our city. I have an idea. I will build a new freeway. I was living in Los Angeles for a while, and when they were building freeways all the time, and they said, no more jams, opening soon, a new freeway, and then you will all be happy, and the new cars can ride on the new freeway. But then obviously it worked in the beginning, 2 days maybe, but after a while there was traffic jams, because all of a sudden everybody went to that new freeway, and if you create new streets, you attract new cars, and all of a sudden you have a traffic jam. The paradox is that everybody uses the fast way, which slows down overall traffic. And there's even the counterexample, and that was in Seoul. In Seoul, there was this freeway, which was the central freeway running through the city, and in 2003 they decided to tear this freeway down. They said, we are going to destroy this freeway, and instead we're going to build a beautiful park. And the result of tearing the freeway down and creating a new park was fewer traffic jams all over the city. Because, as I said before, more roads attract more cars. Fewer roads attract fewer cars. More roads, more cars. More trees, and you will have more nature. You will not have more nature by building more roads. You will only have more nature by planting more trees. If you use more tech, your life will be more technological. Tech will not give you a humane life. It will make your life more technological. That's why Barry Wendell said, the next great division of the world will be between the people who wish to live as creatures and the people who wish to live as machines. Because if you surround yourself with new technology and more technology and more technology, you will start to live as a machine and not as a human creature who appreciates a sunset and a walk in the forest. And that is what's happening right now, and more countries are aware of that, and they say, hey, you know what? Social media didn't make kids more social. So we need to protect children from that, because social media is actually a vice, and it keeps people away and out of groups. So that's a very important thing. So the learning here is that your legacy is defined by your impact on others over time. It's over time and after a stress test. And the sad thing is that this stress will happen. It will happen 100%. It will be the stress of time, the stress of scaling. There will be stress. And you have to ask yourself, how do I deal with that? How can I navigate this stress? And in the world that I live in, my example is a captain on a boat, and the stress is the ocean. So if you have waves and a storm on the ocean and you're the captain of your boat, you want to go to a certain goal. Where do you orient yourself? Do you orient yourself at the next wave, or if you're a business at the next quarter and the next report for stock market, or in the long term? What the captain does in order to stay on course is that the captain will navigate using the North Star in the top corner. That's what the captain will do. And this star is extremely far away. It's not even in the galaxy, but it gives the captain a long-term goal, a very long-term view. And once you have this long-term view and a very far goal, you can work with that. The long-term view is what Niki 2 days ago, when he showed us Coda, Niki's Coda, what she called decision, your decision. Where do I want to go? How fast do I want to achieve this goal? What are my things? That's the decision. And the thing is that you need to stay on target, even if only you know your target. It might not be very visible for others, but you know your target. So if you see it, it's enough. And then that's the guiding point. So everything you have to do, you have to evaluate, do I reach my target? And then, so you have a very far goal, and then you work backwards. Is this action helping me to achieve this goal? The very far goal where you work backwards is fantastic. And a great example is definitely Singapore. If you look at Singapore, it was founded in 1965. It was a very industrial place. Buildings, 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 hardly any trees. They had obviously a garden in the city, and that was okay. But they said that is not okay. That's not our goal. Our long-term goal is not to have a garden in a city. Our long-term goal is actually to be a city in a garden. And then they evaluated every decision they did according to their long-term goal, walking backwards. If we build a new freeway, do we advance our goal of becoming a city in a garden, or do we distract from that goal? And they did it with every single thing. And today, as you might know, Singapore is a fantastic place. Singapore achieved this goal within 50 years after they decided to do it. So we have to ask ourselves, what is our distant goal for our society? Do we want to be just cogs in a machine, or do we want to be free? What is our distance goal with our society? What is your distance goal with your life? If you look back at your life, what do you want to achieve? And are you working towards that or away from it? What is the distant goal with AI? It's To me, sometimes that we're just riding one AI wave after the other. It feels to me as if we are more the captain that is bouncing around on the ship. Oh, this is now new, that is now new, this is now new, than keeping a clear head, looking at a distant goal and walking and working backwards from that. What is the distant goal with you? You can only achieve a goal if you have one. We need that distant goal. So the learning is you have to know your long-term goal, and then you simply have to stay on target. So in order to sum it all up, 330 slides, right? Number one, what we learned is that the distant goal obviously is better output. The world currently is not good, and we want to live in a better world. So our distant goal with the World Operating System Institute is better output. In order to achieve better output, we have to think in operating systems. We cannot think in just input, output. The operating system defines everything. A fantastic operating system that helps us and is known by a lot of people is the Maslow hierarchy of needs. But it's about your needs, which means it's individualized. And we have to create something like that, but it has to be open. So it's the view of everybody else. And that's very, very important. We need to redefine our actions. We need to move from the physiological needs to philanthropy, to sharing it with others. Rather than what do, what can I offer? What can I give to others? Not just printing books, but taking them out into the world and sharing that knowledge with everybody. Be that humans, be that non-humans. Very, very important. We have to move from safety needs to a new focus, where the safety is not locking you in, but unlocking new potential. It is not about secure what I have, but unlock the new potential. Loving and belonging is great, but we have to think about the echo. It's not how many friends do I have, but I want to create love echoes. It's not needing love, but building love echoes. The fourth level of self-esteem has to move to sustainable scaling. It's not I want more. It's how can I scale? How can I scale? And I don't want to deplete resources. I want to restore resources. If you buy more of my product, it should help the planet and not harm the planet. And finally, self-actualization has to become legacy. It is not your short-term success, but your long-term goals that define this. And if you look at those things, you will see that philanthropy, focus, echo, sustainable scaling, and legacy is not a hierarchy. It's next to each other. It's on eye level. There's not one thing better than the other. And there are no limits. And those things are what we call the beacons of values. The beacons of values that guide us to the new world. And we are currently working on that. That is just our foundation. It is just the first couple of steps that Niki and I have taken alone. But we want you to join us and to help us to create a better world for everybody. Thank you very much.